Welcome everyone to Kinship Connects, a podcast from SDA Kinship, where we invite you to join with us as we share our stories and our journeys. My name is Floyd Poenitz, and today it is my privilege to speak with Serenity Maldonado. So Serenity, thanks for joining and sharing with us today.
My pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this interview. We've been talking online, and we have a connection in that you're kind of from my home area, and so so that is great. So let me have you introduce yourself. Tell us where you're at currently in the world, and we'll kind of go from there.
Okay, yeah. Right now I'm in a group home in Commerce, Texas. That's pretty much. I was born and raised in San Antonio. Come from a Mexican family. I was born and raised in San Antonio, and so my parents, they come from. My dad, he's from Montemorelos, Nuevo León. Montemorelos, Nuevo León has a big Adventist population. Montemorelos, Nuevo León is known for La Carlota, which is an Adventist hospital and university, and also a church. So my dad was from there, is from there, and he grew up Catholic, but he converted because he had a neighbor who was Adventist that lived in his neighborhood. And him and my grandparents converted. My dad, I think he was in his late teens, early 20s when he converted. And then my grandmother and my grandfather also converted. And then my aunt and my uncles, my dad's siblings, were raised Seventh-day Adventist.
Okay. Yeah. So you have quite a stable Adventist connection in your family there. So growing up in San Antonio, you obviously were raised Adventist, went to the local church there with your family. And do you have siblings?
Yeah.
Do you have brothers and sisters?
Yes, I do. So I have an older brother named Frank, and then I have a younger brother named Joseph.
Okay, cool. And so somewhere along the line, did you go to Adventist schools as well?
Yes. So I actually started at an Adventist school. It was called Saja Academy.
Mm-hmm.
It was based here in San Antonio. I think it broke off from what's that church's name? Valley View. Some of the members of Valley View Seventh-day Adventist Church were the ones who started Saja Academy. And some of the members there were the ones who funded the Adventist school. And then, of course, me and some other people in the area went to Saja. The pastor of the church that I grew up in, his son was one of my classmates.
Okay.
And then my older brother also went to there. He went to elementary, middle, and high school there. And and then my little brother, he didn't have the privilege to go to an Adventist school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So growing up, what did Adventism and Jesus mean to you? Was it something that you really enjoyed? Yes. Tell me about that.
So, like I said, my dad, he was Adventist before he met my mom. And he met my mom in an Adventist health clinic. Long story short, at that time that my mom met my dad, she wasn't Adventist, she was Catholic. And then they got married. My dad was put in discipline because he married someone that wasn't Adventist. So my dad was put in discipline, but later on, my mom converted.
Okay.
Anyway, but once my mom had me and my siblings, she made it her mission to introduce us to Jesus. I remember from a very young age, my mom would read us stories from the Bible. What's it called? Bible, My Bible Friends or something like that. It's known in the Adventist preschools and elementary schools, but they were in Spanish. So at the time I was growing up, I lived with my grandparents, and my parents lived with my grandparents. And then I remember from a very young age, my mom would read from us from those books. And then from a very young age, I wanted to be baptized. I think my mom says I was like 3 years old. And I was
really?
like, yeah, I was 3 years old. And my mom says, and she said that I told her that I was ready to be baptized. And then my mom, she said, Mijo, you're too young. You don't know anything. And I was like, why are you like, why? I'm trying to prove that I want to show people that I love Jesus. You know that I love Jesus. So let me show it to people that I love Jesus. And my mom says, like, from a very young age, I was very knowledgeable. Like, I could memorize Bible verses like that, or I would always be a part of, Sabbath school and stuff like that. And I also was involved in the choir because I love to sing. So from a very young age, I felt a very close relationship with Jesus. And the church that I grew up in is more of on the conservative side, because I mean, on the conservative side, because in the church I grew up in, there's no drums, there's no the guitar, stuff like that, like there are in some Adventist schools, Adventist churches here now.
Right.
I remember my cousin, he also grew up Adventist. He went to the church that I grew up in. And I remember, I think I was almost a preteen, that he started getting involved with worship, and he brought an electric guitar to worship, and the elders were on his case. I mean,
wow.
like,
Yeah.
they were on his case saying, they were just quoting Ellen G. White like it was nothing. And my cousin got really bad. Like, he got really disciplined really bad. And yeah, that's pretty much. But from a very young age, I always wanted to be a pastor. So my mom says that when I was little, she would have to lock the front door of our house that we were living at the time, because if she didn't, that I would get, the sign of the times, but in the Spanish version, it's called La Ciudad. So I would get those, and I would go all around. I would open the door, and I would go all around the neighborhood.
Wow.
And my mom would get phone calls from our neighbors saying that, your child is trying to convert me. I don't have any interest of being a Jehovah's Witness. Known for going door to door.
Yeah.
And my mom would smile, on a smile on her face. She would say, "Oh, we're not Jehovah's Witness, we're Seventh-day Adventist, but I will have to talk with my son." And yeah, so
Yeah. Wow.
from a very young age, I felt a calling to minister and to show Jesus. And my mom says that even at doctor's appointments, as we waiting in the waiting room, I would pray for people.
Wow.
I would go to complete strangers. I would go up to them and say, "Hey, do you need prayer?" And if they said yes, I would pray for them. Also, I had I think she was an aunt or a grandmother, and she lived in Mexico. So the times that we would go to Mexico to visit her, she suffered from migraines, and she would love for the times that we would go visit her, because she said that every time that we would go visit her, that she would ask for me specifically, so I could pray for her. And that she said that as I would pray for her and I say amen, the migraine would go away.
Wow, that's awesome. That's beautiful. Yeah.
So it's Yeah, from a very young age, I felt the calling into ministry.
Yeah, yeah, a real passion for telling others about Jesus, and yeah, yeah, that's awesome, awesome. So at some point, where along the line did you realize that maybe you were a little different than a lot of the other boys and girls out there? Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I think it's normal for everybody in kindergarten to have like a wife or a husband. In kindergarten you have those experience where you say, "Oh, she's my wife" or "He's my husband."
Uh-huh.
It's like an innocent kid game. So I remember when I was in Saja, I had this girl who I said that she was my wife. And at that time, even though I would say that she was my wife, I also had a little crush on my pastor's son.
Oh,
His name
okay.
is Michael. I had a crush on him, but like I didn't recognize it was a crush. I just thought he was, cute, and I didn't really know what I was doing, so like I didn't really pay attention to it. So long story short, my wife, she got jealous because we had this new student. Her name was Sarah, and she wasn't Adventist. I think she was Lutheran, but her parents were just looking for a Christian school, and
Mhm.
they weren't any Lutheran schools in their area, and the closest Christian school was Saja. So her parents enrolled her in Saja, and she was new. And like me being the friendly person that I am, I just went up to her and we just started playing. And then my wife, she got jealous, and then she
And
got
this is
jealous.
kindergarten, right?
Yes, it's kindergarten. She got jealous and she divorced me.
Oh, wow.
She divorced me, and my mom says that I was crying for weeks. Like for weeks, I was like this emotional ball. But
Mm,
I remember after that experience, I noticed I was different because I was not like most boys that would have their boyfriend. I mean, I had guy friends,
mhm.
but I think the only reason that I had those guy friends is because they went to church with me.
Yeah.
Because most of the students there were from the church that I grew up in.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, so, but I also noticed I would play with girls, like Barbies, stuff like that, girl stuff, and
Mhm.
even from a very young age, I had a favorite Barbie. It was not like the typical name brand Barbie. It was just like a doll. I just called it a Barbie because
Yeah,
yeah. So
sure.
it was my favorite toy. Like I would always carry it around, and there's pictures in my family album of me with my Barbie. Like I would take it everywhere, and yeah, that was basically in kindergarten when I noticed that I wasn't like most boys.
Mhm. Okay, okay. Yeah, and did your parents or family notice this or comment on it?
I don't think they comment. I think they noticed it because I mean I remember specifically from my childhood um, that they're back then when I was growing up, they had the burger for the Happy Meal.
Okay.
So you know how like sometimes back then they would like um have those like toys for like movies and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think they were coming out with Sleeping Beauty or The Little Mermaid.
Uh-huh.
Excuse me. And I wanted the girl toy. Like I wanted the Happy Meal, but I wanted the girl toy so bad. And my dad caught on to that, and he said, "No, you can't have the girl meal. You're a boy. You have to have the boy meal. You have to get boy toy." And he was like very strict on it.
Yeah.
And of course I got upset. Like I would cry and like, throw a tantrum, and like I'll get upset. And then my aunt, his sister, my tia Mari, she was like she would spoil the crap out of me. Like I think I was her favorite nephew.
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
so like, to make me happy, she would take me to McDonald's, and then of course get me the girl toy because that's what I wanted.
Sure.
And just happy, like I had the biggest smile, like ear to ear when I got that little Ariel. I was like
Uh-huh.
so happy. And my aunt, she says that she saw me and that I was so happy, so excited. And yeah, so that's basically one of the only instances that from my childhood, before I became a teenager, that I remember that my parents, my dad specifically, didn't, say, no, you're a boy, you have to get the boy toy. So
Okay, okay. So yeah, so at that point, other than enjoying girl things, toys, whatever, um, at what point did you think, hey, I'm really not a boy, I am a girl? Did that come like fairly early in that process, or when did
um,
you kind of decide that?
so what happened is that, so I knew that I was very feminine and I was very not like boys. So like I remember like maybe I think I was 11 or 12 that my cousin was getting ready for her quinceañera. And I remember specifically that she went to Mexico because they wanted to take a picture of the four generations
Mhm.
of the women. So it's my great grandmother when she was still alive, La Abuelita Lolita, it was her, then my grandmother, then my aunt, my tia Juani, and then my cousin Leslie.
Mhm.
So they took a picture of the four generations.
Yeah.
And I remember when it was the day of her quinceañera that I was so jealous because I wanted a quinceañera. I
Yeah.
wanted a quinceañera so bad. Like I didn't know that boys didn't have them. It was just something that naturally came to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want a quinceañera. Like I was so jealous. And I think that's the only instance that I think that um, I wanted something that wasn't, forced on me. I mean, from that age, I was never exposed to, people who are gay, let alone people who are trans. So I never knew what trans was. So
Mhm.
I just like from that age, I thought I was like maybe I'm just gay, maybe. Um, like I didn't really know what trans was. So like I just thought I was gay, but I didn't really recognize that until I was like maybe a teenager.
Right, right. Yeah, life doesn't come with an instruction manual
Yeah.
that has all the terms and terminologies, and it's like if you feel this way, then that, and if you do this, then that. It just
Mhm.
doesn't happen, and it's even less so in the Adventist culture where you just don't talk about things like that. So yeah, yeah. Um, so yeah, it was a little confusion of am I trans, am I gay? I hear these terminology, these words, and which one really fits me? You had to play with a little bit to see what was actually you, and
Mhm.
where you felt comfortable.
Yeah.
So yeah, so let me switch gears just a little bit because and fast forward to teen and early young adult life, kind of where you are now.
Mm.
You recently decided to go to Keene to Southwestern Adventist University,
Yes.
and why did you? What major did you pick, or why did you want to go to an Adventist university and pursue an education there?
So I think so when I was a teenager, I was about 13 years old that I came out to my parents as bisexual.
Okay,
And at this point,
why pick bisexual? Let me just ask
Why
that.
bisexual?
Yeah.
Because like I had attractions towards women, like sexual attractions, but I would prefer guys because I guess I just had more connections with guys.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, I came out as bi, but at this point I wanted help. Like I was like, I need help because I know this is wrong. I know the way that I'm feeling is wrong. I need help. I need to repent. I need to get counseling, whatever I need to cure me. So I went to my parents. I told them that I was bisexual. And they said, well, you know that that's wrong and that we can help you. So we went to a pastor and he recommended conversion therapy. And that's a part of my life that I've blocked out for many years. And just recently, maybe a year ago, I started EMDR therapy and started remembering snippets of what happened to me. I ignored it for 27 years, and it wasn't until last year that I was diagnosed with PTSD. And it was super hard for me to accept that diagnosis. Because it was hard for me to accept bipolar as a diagnosis, because me being Hispanic, mental health, it wasn't talked about, it wasn't discussed, and I was always told that depression is a rich white people's problem, so if you don't have it, so
right.
But yeah, being diagnosed with PTSD was very hard, because me being diagnosed with PTSD means that what happened to me actually happened to me. So it was super hard for me to accept, which I was admitted into an inpatient psychiatric facility after I was diagnosed with PTSD. And then,
how old were you then? How old was that?
I was 27. Yeah, I was 27
Okay.
when I was diagnosed with PTSD.
Okay.
Yeah, from 13 until my early 20s, I was in conversion therapy, and I was in and out of conversion therapy. I had this friend in middle school. His name was John, and he was a Christian. I believe, if I remember correctly, he was Baptist. I want to say he was Baptist. And he was my only guy friend, one of my only guy friends, because he didn't care. He was the only one that didn't care that I was. But in middle school, I came out as gay, even though I said I was bisexual, but people would say, oh, you're just gay because you prefer guys, so you're just gay. So that's what everybody labeled me as. So he was the only one that didn't care, or one of the only ones that didn't care that I was gay, so he would hang out with me. And then middle school, before everybody knew that I had same-sex attractions, I had this best friend. His name was Matt. And me and him in 6th grade, we were like best friends. We were like really, really close. And it came to a point where I started having romantic feelings for him. I had romantic feelings for him, and I told him, and he was disgusted, and he stopped being my friend. He stopped being my friend, and he started bullying me all throughout middle school.
Yeah.
So him and his friends in 6th grade would bully me day in and day out. And this is also during the time that I started self-harming. And also during this time when I was diagnosed with, my first diagnosis was borderline personality disorder. But I think the only reason that I was diagnosed with that was because I was self-harming. But I was also diagnosed with severe depression. But yeah, Matt and his friends would bully me day in and day out in 6th grade. And then one day, I was just sick of it. Like, I was done. So I remember this day clearly. And it's one of the only memories I remember clearly. Because since my brain blocked out a lot of my trauma, I only remember snippets of my childhood. I don't really remember that much.
Mhm.
So in 6th grade, we had gym class, and in gym class we would have to change. So it was after gym class, and we were changing, and he said out loud in a very loud voice, he said, "I don't think we should have a little faggot in the changing room, because if we have this faggot, because he's gonna touch us." And
Wow.
that's when I was done. Like I went up to him and I was like, "Meet me at the concourse, because we're gonna fight."
Oh, wow.
We're
Yeah.
gonna fight. So we had a fight. And I think I blacked out because I was so pissed off. All I remember is just like everybody was like the whole 6th grade class was there. Um, and I guess I just blacked out because I was so mad
Yeah.
that my friend John, he said that he was there. He said that I just got on top of him and just wham, 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 wham. And he said that it took like 3 teachers to take me off of him.
Yeah. You had had
and-
enough. You had had enough of the bullying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So him and his friends just left, and the teacher came, and she took me. She was escorting me to the principal's office, and she told me, "Peter, I am so disappointed in you. Why did you let him get to you?
Mhm.
Why you're such a good student? Why did you let him get to you?" And I'm like, "You guys didn't do shit. Like you didn't, like I reported it, I don't know how many times, to the counseling office, to the vice principal's office, and you guys didn't do anything about the bullying. You
Right.
knew about the bullying. You know that I was getting bullied to the point that I started getting depressed and started self-harming. You knew all this, and you didn't do anything to prevent it. So why are you blaming me for having an inaccurate reaction when you
Right.
didn't, when I tried to do the right thing and you guys didn't do anything?"
And this was an Adventist school?
No, it was in public school.
This was a public school. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
because I was taken out of an Adventist school because I started having learning disabilities, and the Adventist school didn't have the resources to
Yeah.
help me out. So I started going to public school.
Okay.
And then after that, of course, as disciplinary, my mom was not even mad at me. I remember that I was in the vice principal's office, and my mom comes in, and she was not even mad at me because she knew that I tried to do the right thing and report it, and she knew that what was going on. So she was not even upset with me. So they put me in alternative school. And to make things worse, in alternative school, they put me in every single class that I had in alternative school, I had with Matt. And they sat him right next to me.
Mm.
So that was an experience. And
Yeah.
then, basically all throughout middle school, was being bullied, being called faggot. Since I had mostly Hispanic friends and a larger Hispanic student population than the school that I went to, we all spoke Spanish. Even though we spoke English, I guess it was just a habit to just speak Spanish.
Yeah.
So of course, the other Hispanic kids that weren't my friends, the guys would call me Joto, which means faggot in Spanish. They would say pinche Joto, which means fucking faggot. Stuff like that. They call me marica, which is also another term for faggot. It was just day in and day out that I was just bullied, and I was severely depressed to the point where it's just like, I had a best friend back then. Her name was Daisy. And she was like my best friend because she was the only one that I could talk to. I couldn't talk to my parents. I couldn't talk to the counselors, so other school counselors. So she was the only one that I could talk to.
Good.
It
Yeah.
came to a point where I guess I was just too much for her, because I mean, everything was a crisis with me. And there was a point where she just stopped talking to me because she got mad at me that I was self-harming. So it just put a damper on our friendship, and we just stopped being friends because it was just too much for her. So yeah. And then high school came around, and the middle school that I went to, it was called John H. Wood Middle School. So the majority of the people that go to Wood Middle School go to a high school here in San Antonio called James Madison High School. So the majority of the students that go to Wood would go to Madison, and only maybe a portion of the other population would go to Roosevelt. I was part of that population that would go to Roosevelt High School. Excuse me. Roosevelt High School is just known for drugs, fights, stuff like that.
Wow. Yeah.
It's just known for that. If any kids that gone to Northeast Independent School Districts and anybody mentioned Roosevelt, they will tell you stories. That's the bad school. That's the bad school. So I went to Roosevelt, even though the neighborhood that I was living at the time was technically Madison District, because Madison High School was not that far from where I lived. It was like maybe 15 minutes away. But they changed bus routes. So so that neighborhood became Roosevelt District.
Okay.
But I started going to high school, and I was, very flamboyant, very stereotypical gay. And everybody knew me. I mean, I was the gay guy. I was one of the gay guys, because there was another gay guy there who was a cheerleader. I can't remember his name, but he was a cheerleader, and everybody knew him because he was the only male cheerleader. But so yeah, I started high school, and I was also bullied there, mostly by African Americans, but also mainly from African Americans and Hispanics, because back then I was also in soccer, because I've always liked soccer. Well, not always. It's not until middle school that I actually started showing a big interest in soccer.
Okay.
And so in high school, I was in soccer, and the other soccer players, they didn't know me because, of course, I was just a freshman. But then they found out that I was gay. And then they were like, "Oh, we can't have a little faggot." They started bullying me. They started, doing the typical stuff. And then it wasn't until my junior year where the whole Caitlyn Jenner thing was going on.
Right.
And that's when, before that was going on, I knew deep inside. I was held back like a lot because of my mental health. I was held back because I wasn't really in school, because I was in and out of psychiatric hospitals. So I was about maybe, I want to say 16 or 17 already. And I was a freshman. And so at this point, I was like, I think I'm more than gay. I mean, yes, I know that I like guys. Yes, that's no doubt. I like guys. But there's something else about me that is weird. Well, not, that's what I would call it, weird. Because I remember, like, sometimes when I would take a shower, I didn't feel comfortable. I would hate taking a shower because I'm exposed, and I would just have severe gender dysphoria, but I didn't know back then that was gender dysphoria. So like I just remember sometimes thinking, I wish I could just cut it off. Like there would be times like I just wanted to get a scissors and just do bottom surgery myself.
Ouch. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it wasn't until my junior year where the whole Caitlyn Jenner thing was going on. And that's where I learned what trans was. And I researched and I was like, I thought I was the only one that felt like this.
Wow.
I legitimately thought, because I was never exposed to anybody who was, I was never exposed to anybody who was gay. So let alone anybody who was trans. So I legitimately, before I did my research about people who are trans, I thought I was the only one. I thought I was the only one that didn't identify with the sex that they were assigned with at birth. So when I did my research, I was like, wow, there's more of me. I have a family. I have a community. What? Like, it was so like mind-blowing. I mean, I knew that I had a community with, being gay and stuff, but that was just not, it wasn't home for me. Yes, I knew that I had people who would share common things with me, but it wasn't like home for me. So it was not until my junior year where I started being honest with my psychiatrist that I didn't identify with the gender that I was assigned at birth. And it was at that time where I was also at a psychiatric hospital called Laurel Ridge Treatment Center. And I don't want to say it was Dr. Baez. He's a psychiatrist that works there that diagnosed me with gender dysphoria.
Okay.
And that's when I started a little bit of my transitioning. And then I started seeing a gender therapist called Steve. Oh my gosh, Steve, he was hilarious. Steve, he was a social worker. And if I'm not wrong, he said that I don't know if he used to work at Southwestern or he knew about Southwestern, because like our first session, I told him that I was raised Adventist. And he was like, oh, you're Seventh-day Adventist? And I was like, yeah. And you know about it? And he was like, yeah, I used to work. I know about Southwestern, blah, 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 blah.
Wow.
But our very first session, he asked me, do you know the difference between a drag queen and a trans woman? Do you know the difference? And I was like, yeah, I know the difference. He was like, okay, what's the difference? I was like, a drag queen does it for fun, for entertainment. A person who's trans actually feels as a woman. A trans woman identifies as a woman. That's how I feel. From a very young age, I identified as a girl.
Wow. Yeah. Good question. Let me, can you just, this is really interesting. And what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to break this podcast into two sections, because I have some more questions and I want to hear about the next part of the story. So I'm going to end this broadcast with my little spiel, and then we'll start a new one and continue on that. Is that okay with you?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So this has really been great, and I want to thank you for sharing with us today. And we hope that today's podcast was interesting and has given our listeners some things to think about. Seventh-day Adventist Kinship is the only LGBTQIA+ affirming community for current and former Adventists. And we welcome not only the Rainbow Alphabet members, but also parents and family members who want to learn more about how to support their loved ones, as well as supportive allies who stand with us to make a difference in our church. You can check us out on the web at sdakinship.org or follow us on social media at SDA Kinship. If you have any questions or comments, or even a question for Serenity, you can email me at info@sdakinship.org. and I'm happy to respond or forward your comments on to Serenity. We look forward to having you with us on the next podcast release. Thank you very much.